Hello everyone, we're going to look today at bringing our layered Illustrator file into Adobe After Effects, setting up a few keyframes, but generally spacing out all our letters, words, or phrases across our timeline. Remember that anything you want to move independently, best put up on its own layer. And if you saw the previous video, I started all this in Illustrator, though I realized already I've forgotten a few of the words and some laughter, which I can go ahead and add in After Effects. So the process itself is very forgiving. Just keep in mind it's a huge time suck when you start putting all your keyframes in because there's so many variables. If you want some very interesting movement of the type with one layer affecting another, which is what you want, it's going to take some sustained concentration and investigation on your part. So the first thing I wanted to show you is a simple keyboard commands that really will help this out. Remember that when you're in your timeline, you notice that here's my first top two lines. There's 4 lines of type, they all show, and then at this point, the top two stop, right? You can take these and set the in points and out points. Like what happens if I wanted just to have the first 2 lines of type and then the second 2 lines of type I want to come on later? Well, I can shift click them and I can hit this option left bracket to change the endpoint of them. So I hit option left bracket and set my new layer endpoint for these lines of type. Now I could have just grabbed it also and just moved them like this. They're moving them both because they're shift clicked, they're both selected. But it's just much easier to do this, to use your keyboard, because you're doing a lot of dragging, especially if you have a long timeline. All right, so keep that in mind. Okay, I have my sound in here that we're going to work with. I also have to bring in my Illustrator file. So went to File, Import, and I have my Assets folder with everything in it. This one's called But the Ball. And like before, I want to bring this in as a composition and retain layer sizes, because you can tell by the thumbnail up here that I have words that are going out of the screen. I did that on purpose because I want the whole phrase to move on as a unit, and I don't want to be able to read the whole phrase. I just want to read like a word at a time as a phrase goes across the screen. Okay, so composition, retain layer sizes, open. I can double click this. I have a background color in there. And I can also set that as the background color for my composition, just in case, like this background, like if I forgot to lock it and I moved it off the screen or something, like so, I'd have a matching background color. But I might want to use this. I might want to do something with this. Like maybe I pick out a yellow background color and then I can use this to do some kind of reveal. There's so many options. Like if that doesn't make sense, watch this. For a minute, let's set the actual background color. This is my Illustrator background. I should just call this maybe my background rectangle or something. But oops, didn't mean to double click that guy. But for example, some things that you could do with your keyframes is that you could go to your composition, and your composition settings, which by the way, I've set it to, I'm going to set it to 820 as my duration because my clip is going to be about that long. My entire clip is 30 seconds, but the section I'm working with now is about 8 seconds and 20 frames. And I click this guy and make my background color yellow. So what does that mean? What can I do with that? Well, again, I could take this background if I wanted and watch. If I move that along, it looks like my words are disappearing, right? That should give you some ideas. I can make that thing go up and down. I could take my word levels and oh my gosh, I see where I can do with this really easily. All right, so in a sense I have 2 background colors. I might even make a yellow rectangle. I could do that in here with this tool and make a giant yellow rectangle. So as long as the colors match exactly, it's no problem. I can reveal things and use things. I don't even need to do any complicated masking or anything like that. Okay, so let's click my roll it again, because the first thing you're going to need to do to figure out where your type, so I have all this type. Right now it's all on the screen at the same time. I'm going to shift click all these things and make them go to the very end of my composition. But clearly I don't want all that to happen. I'm going to lock my background for now. And I want to start with the word but. But where does the word but begin and end? Well, that's where we need our sound. Now here's an important little trick. Oops, you can tell I've already done this before. 'Cause it'll look something like this. And when you play the whole thing, so you would hear the whole thing. I'm not going to play all 30 seconds because I know somewhere down around here is where I want to begin.
The ball is gone.
So with the word but, that's where this composition starts. I'm going to put all the other compositions together separately, and then in the end, all of these compositions are going to go together, and I'll show you that at the end of this with the compositions I do have. Okay, so somewhere around there, so I hit this little icon here, it sets endpoint. And now when I drag this down into my timeline, it is just that 8 seconds of audio. And more importantly, I can hit this little guy. Now, there's also, and I can look at my waveform. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to control click on this layer and set this as a guide layer. This is just in case I forget to delete the layer later, because I'm going to put the whole sound file on in the end when I put my separate compositions together in a final composition. I'll take my whole sound file with the endpoint reset to the beginning, and I don't want to have to hear it twice. Like, I don't want it from this composition playing with other compositions. So if I set it for guide layer, it won't do that. All right, it gets this little icon right here, this little green grid. Okay, so you can see the word but right there, and it ends about right here. So I can take the word but and end it. I'm going to go a little further because I want the words to be on the screen at the same time at some level. So about right here. And so I could pull this guy down. Well, I already had it there, so let's do it. But I could also use the option bracket keyboard shortcut. Okay, also I should take all the other layers just because I know that I don't need them yet. Put them over here. Okay, so we can only see butts. There they are. We'll fix them later. So here's the deal. I want everything to overlap a little bit because I'm going to do some keyframing. And so I'll take this guy and move him over so there's some overlap. And then what I'd probably do with these guys is I'm going to shift click them and hit P for position and set my initial keyframe for both of them. But I don't want them to be on the screen at the same time just like that. I'm going to take the word ball, I just have that one selected now, and move it in the Y direction off the screen. All right, so I could also grab it, but I like using these guys. All right, so he's up there out of the screen when he starts. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to move this guy off and this guy down here. And I'm going to make sure I hit the little motion. Actually, for all these things, I'm just going to go ahead and turn them all on now. Okay, those are my motion pieces, right? So what it's going to look like is they're both coming down together. Boom! See how that works?
The ball!
That looks much prettier. And then for other things,
His groin!
so his groin starts, you can look at the sound file again. That's the word his. So his is here. I actually have a ball that will happen very quickly. The ball will, let's stop the ball here. And the ball is going to drop. I'm not going to do this whole thing now. This will take me like hours and hours and hours. Probably I would give yourself 2 or 3 hours for every composition. So I would probably spend about 10 hours on this, putting this all together, because I'm going to get picky. But what's going to happen is the ball is going to fall here. And knock that off. And I haven't decided, there's a few things I could do with the actual ball. I could set keyframes for the scale and have it, come like that. Actually, I'll have it bounce at your face. Like it hits you in the face, and then when it comes back out, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to have the word ball show up there. And then when it fades back out, you will see the word his. All right. So right here, for the word ball, my scale should be super big. And then right here, it should be super small. Just type in 0. Make sure these guys are locked. And then here, I want it back to 0 again. And I need to make sure that ball, at this point, the word ball is gone. So I'm going to option bracket there. All right, so this will come up. By the time it disappears,
The ball is groin!
okay, I'm going to fix the timing later because that's the minutia that
It's groin!
I get sucked into, and I'll be here for an hour, and you'll be listening and watching and be like, ah. Okay. So you're going to spend time tweaking, I promise you. For now, I'm going to go ahead and jump down here to one last section. And for this, his groin has to end. So those layers, I'm just going to shift, and we'll figure out the where we want those to end later. Somewhere around there, probably for now.
It works at so many levels!
Oh wow, that was lucky.
It works at so many levels!
Okay, so that's where I want it works on so many levels to start, right here.
It works at so many levels!
And by the way, where I have his groin, what's going to happen is I'm going to set the rotation point up here, and then his is going to rotate into the groin, and the groin is going to fly off in 3 dimensions. I can't show you how to do a 3-dimensional thing really quickly for the word groin. So I'll rotate this, set a keyframe for that. It'll spin up, hit the word groin, just like the ball hitting the groin that Homer's laughing about. And then groin, if I want, there's a little 3D switch here. I've already enabled all the blur switches, but there's also a 3D switch. And when I turn that on, if I hit rotation now, like when it's off, rotation is one thing. You just rotate it. But if you hit this 3D switch, rotation, you have all different axes to rotate around. So I want his to swing up, hit groin, and then what happened is groin's going to move off the screen like this, but at the same time, it's going to be spinning around the y-axis, so you can see what happens here. Now I can rotate it this way, which is kind of awesome. So it's going to be like, woo, as it flies off. So, yeah. In fact, I'll just go ahead and set a keyframe real quickly right there. I'll start that one at 0. And then over here, when he's off the screen, I would take this and I'm going to rotate that and have it do it a bunch of times, actually. That's probably too many, like 8. So here's what that looks like. That might be too much. You know, maybe I will actually turn off the motion blur for this one. Yep, I'm going to turn off the motion blur for that one. And of course, I'd also be moving it at the same time. So when it gets kicked and starts to rotate, I would also go ahead and do a position keyframe. X, Y. We want this to move in the X dimension. So there we have 1. And then over here, we will have it move over this way. So that should make it flip around. I might have to rotate it. Well, you'll get it. All right. So that's 3D. Super easy. Just keep in mind that it complicates things by adding some extra rotation features that require me to pause for a minute and think about the axes when I'm rotating around, but pretty fun. Okay, you've probably seen a lot of that in some of the video samples, so I wanted to show that. Okay, also, let's go back up to the top here. Layer 7 was the layer we were working with here. Turn this eyeball back on. And I forgot to title it, so I'm going to control click, pick rename, or right click, right button click, and call this It Works. Also, I did all of Homer's in caps, but not the other voice. Okay, so what I want to have here is those things will already be off the screen. I might use that ball bouncing around the entire time if I want, just to, it's a convenient way for me to push things on and off the screen, I've realized. Okay, in this case, I'm going to have this type come across the screen. It's a big long blocks of type. And again, this is why I did it in Illustrator, because in Illustrator you can see it extending off the screen really easily. It goes right off your screen and onto the scratch space, and you can see everything, and that's super handy for me. But here, what I'll do is I'm going to set an initial keyframe.
It works at so many levels.
So right about here, the word levels appears. And I want this to be, at that point, I want this to be over here. Like this. So that's where I'm going to start with this whole thing. Guessing somewhere around there. And actually, you know what? Before I do any of this, I'm going to reset my pivot point, the rotation point down here, because I want it to rotate around that. Okay. Remember, that's this guy, pan behind anchor point tool. So right here is when the word levels comes on. So as long as the word levels appears around then, we're fine. So I'm going to hit all these guys because there's going to be some rotation and all this happening. So position, rotation, I'm going to hit. All right. And then over here at the beginning, he's going to start way off for the position, way over here. Keep it going, Jeff. Okay, so now he goes over there, and then what I want to happen right here is a rotation. So that's why I hit the initial rotation here, because a little bit later, I want it to rotate down, like so. It's 90 degrees, man. There we go. Okay, so here's what it looks like. It works on so many levels. Except, obviously, it didn't go far enough, so I'm going to back up to this previous keyframe of the position and change that a hair. I didn't set another keyframe, I just changed it. And it looks like I probably could use a smaller block of type. I made a hair bit big. I'm going to change the scale a bit. I'm not going to set a keyframe. I'm just shaking the whole thing and moving it down. So across the whole spectrum, it'll be that size. And then here's where I can do something with my background. My background. And again, I'd be sampling the audio a lot more. Just check my timing. You're going to listen to the audio over and over. So I hope you like your clip. You picked it. Okay, so my background, unlock, and probably, so position, again, and in this case, it's Y. I can go, woo. I'm going to have it go up and down real quick. Or have it go, let's see, it works on so many levels. Ha ha ha, and then roll it again. And I could have it come back up and roll it again. Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. So I could set a keyframe here. And then over here, he's laughing this whole time. But here's where I would move it down. And it looks like that whole type has just disappeared. And then at this point, I can't actually make it disappear right here on my timeline. I would just go Option and the bracket again. Oops, except I got to be on that layer. And we're set. Hopefully I didn't mess up I did. Okay. Okay, we just got to remember, make the
So many levels! Roll it again. But the ball is growing! It works at so many levels!
And you know, I think what I would do is have this, I think I want to go back to I'm going to keep this background on the whole time, is move the background back onto the screen at this point, because I've already ended the text layer at this point. So it's already gone. Okay, I got to figure that, I got this little slightly off with the timing there. There we go. And then I got to figure out how, and I forgot to do that in Illustrator, so I'm just grab my type tool and put another layer on right here in After Effects. My oversight. Or I could go back to Illustrator and add those two layers, and it would automatically, as long as I save it with the same title and in the same folder, next time I open this, it will automatically update with my new composition and show me my new layers. Either way, I'm pretty flexible, and you should be too. Okay. Finally, I'm going to save this. And I'm going to call this Jeff's Kinetic Type 2. And I do have two compositions in here, so this gives me an opportunity to show you really quickly how this is going to end all this up. So I have this composition which is not part of this project. Let's just pretend. And I have the end of this composition. So what I would do here is, if I've got all my different sections together from all my sound files, is I would go back to my roll again, reset my endpoint, so it's my whole sound file. So I have this composition.
Getting hit by football.
So probably that first 10 seconds of that other guy, the announcer, would be one, and then Homer laughing right here.
This contest is over. Give that man the $10,000.
And that probably is a good composition.
This isn't America's Funniest Home Videos.
And that's probably a good composition. So I'd have 4 compositions essentially. You know, and some people do this all as one giant composition, but that's just a lot of like scrolling through this incredibly long timeline, and more importantly, a ton of layers. There's so many layers. Like, it's too much for me to handle. Well, I mean, I've done it before, because I've done some pretty intense projects, but it's a lot of just spending time going up and down in layers. So I tend to make them 10-second bursts, basically. And then what you do is you just do a new composition. You call it like final. I spelled kinetic wrong. Final type comp, it should have all the same parameters, although the background color is not going to matter, and this number should be the length of your sound file. I think it was 30 seconds, so I'm just going to put 30 in, and then we'll know in a second, because I'm going to drag this down here. So this is my entire sound file. Just remember, I reset the endpoint. And then what I would do is I can just take the composition, but the ball, and drag it right here. I missed. Drag it right here onto that icon, and
But the ball is growing. It works at so much. But the ball is growing.
all right, and then the other compositions, obviously,
Roll it again.
I would drag where they start. So I don't have those, but just to show you, I can drag compositions in there. And I can drag compositions. I could use them for later projects. You can drag a composition in there as many times as you want.
Productions presents Man Getting Hit by Football.
All right, so the beauty of this also is that you can move your whole composition right here. Like I could fade this on. I could do the same kind of techniques with the keyframes as I did before. You know, I could do like some sort of fade if I want with this entire composition now. It's basically one giant unit. I could rotate the entire composition if I wanted. That looks like crap. Change the scale, have it come on the screen in a different way. I could start it real big and have it zoom to 100%. You know, these are all Illustrator documents, so they're all going to look super great here. All right, so I have another set of options I can do if I do it this way with individual compositions and then make one single final composition in the end. And then what I would do, this is my final thing. This is the thing I would render. This is final type comp with Homer, and I'm done.